Hello and welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be on a command line install on WordPress. So I have a clean server here that doesn't have WordPress installed, but it does have their prerequisites or requirements. So it's a Linux box. It has Apache 2, it has MySQL, PHP, PHP 7, and it has MySQL PHP extension. So the way I'm going to check to see if Apache and MySQL are running, I'm going to do a service command. So we'll do service Apache 2, and we'll just do status. So this is on Ubuntu 17, I think. So you'll see that the Apache 2 service is in fact running and installed, and we'll see the version later on. So we're going to do service MySQL and status to see if MySQL is running, and it is. So we're good with that. And let's quit to get out of that. And so now I do want to check to see if PHP is running, so I'm just going to do PHP I think it's dash version, and you see, yep, PHP is installed and it's running 7.2, which good. That's the latest one at this time. So now let's check to see if GD is installed. So GD is the image library that WordPress needs. Now you can install WordPress without GD, but you'll run into trouble when you try to use it. So what we're going to just do is I'm just going to do apt install PHP 7.2-GD. Now this PHP 7.2-GD is important because I've seen some tutorials that have different versions of that nomenclature, and you have to check to see if that's what you need for your particular distribution. I do have to use sudo to use that, so we'll do that, and I'll put in my password, and it should already know this version, so that's good. So that's one way to check that, and there are other ways as well. So the next thing I want to check is that PHP is in fact running on my server. So I'm going to go over to HTML. So this is my directory, and I put a file called PHP info. And if we look at that by using the cat command there, we can do PHP, and you see it's just a simple call to the PHP info function or method. So let's look at that. To look at that, I'm going to use the links browser, which is text-based browser, and I'm going to point it to localhost. So that's this machine and /phpinfo.php. So now if PHP is not working on Apache, you won't get you won't get the correct result. You'll get code because it'll just return the file. But you'll see that PHP is working, and it reports all the different things that are available to PHP. So these are all the settings. So you see it's got the Apache in there, all the environment variables, and more and more and more and more. It's got tons. So let's get out of this browser. So PHP is good to go. So that's all we need to check before we get started installing WordPress. The next thing we need to do is start installing the database. So we're gonna set up the database and the database user. So let's do that now. So in this version of Ubuntu, they dispensed with a password for root. It uses the local security to get you into MySQL. So all you have to do is do sudo MySQL to get into the client, and you'll see I didn't have to put in a -p or -u. It's a little scary at first, but it's actually more secure. So the next thing we're going to do, let's do show databases to show that, so you see the databases that are already installed. I'm not the best typist, so you'll see I have a couple on there. Only one that's not defaulted, and that was an old Drupal install. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do create schema, and we'll call the name of the schema WordPress. Now the word schema is synonymous with database. You can use either. So that created a row. Now if I do a show databases, you'll see I've got my WordPress database there. And the next thing I want to do is create a user. So create a user takes two steps. First I have to use the DDL command create user, and the name of the user is going to be WP user, so WordPress user. And the second component of the user is the location. And different locations create different users. So WP user is not the same at localhost, is not the same as WP user at an IP address. So, and we're going to identify it with a password, identified by, and we're just going to type in a good password. So this isn't sticking around, so make sure you generate a good password. You don't want people hacking your database. And that will create the user, and you see when it says query OK, that means it was successful. And now we're going to grant permissions to that user to just the WordPress database. So we're going to do grant, and we're going to say all on WordPress. That's the name of the schema, and then .star for all the tables. So it's going to have permission to do whatever it wants to all the tables, but only on WordPress. So we give it the username that we just created, WP user at localhost, and that's important. You have to have the host, and that's it. And that gives permissions. So so we saw how I did show databases before, and you can see the ones listed. Now let's exit, and we'll test this user by logging in. This time we will use the user argument, and it'll be WP user, and it knows that it's localhost because I'm typing from the localhost. So P for password, I'm going to put in a good password. I think I'm going to mistype that. Yep, I'll try that again. A good password. So that means our user works. That's good. And now we want to check to make sure the permissions are right. So we're going to do show databases again, and you can use your arrow keys. Oh, nope, you can't. It's a different user, so I can't do that. MySQL does contain history for each login, so you can just use your arrow keys to go through those. So I do show database. Oops. Databases, sorry. And you'll see it's only showing 2 this time, as opposed to all the system databases. And you see if I just hit my up arrow key, I can do the show databases again. So now that our database is set up, we can actually start by downloading the WordPress, or downloading WordPress and running the install. So to download WordPress, we're going to use sudo again, because we don't have, if we look at this directory, let me do that for you. If we ls-l, we see that this directory owns the www.data, and if I type in groups, I don't think I'm a member of that. Nope, I'm not. Oh no, I am. So I should have permission, but I probably don't. So let's do cd-html. Let's do it the way that normally you wouldn't be part of the www-data group. So let's assume that you're not. So we're going to do sudo, and we're going to do wget, and then for WordPress, it's always the same, which I really like. So it's wordpress.org, and it's latest.zip. So it's always that to get the latest version of WordPress. So you see it's that quickly, we're downloaded, and you can see right there. So I use, so now we need to unarchive that. I use unzip. You might have to install that, and you can install that with apt or apt-get. Or whatever tool you use to install stuff. So we're going to unzip, and it inflates it. Oh, so I do have permission because it let me do that. So let's do ls-l, and you see WordPress is installed. Now the next thing we have to do before we go to the web page is we have to change the WordPress directory to be owned by www.data, and that's otherwise the Apache user can't access this because it's owned by me currently. So we're going to do chown, and we want it recursive down a directory. We're going to do the user www.data, so we're changing owner, and then colon, and the group, which is www.data, and that's it. Oops, nope, I got to tell it what to change. Sorry, and so it needs me to be sudo to change that. So no worries. And that's it. So now when we do an ls-l, we'll see that WordPress is now owned by www-data. So now we need to move over to the browser-based portion of the install.